250 in total. Just to remind you that this performance, like all our performances, is a relaxed one. That means the lights will stay like this. We will not have any loud sudden noises, though there may be some music in the background. There's a relaxed attitude to movement and sound from the audience for the benefit of those who can't stay still or silent for an hour. If you need a break, then just feel free to head out the doors you came through. There's some seats outside, and you can come back in any time during the hour. We also have
This is One Blade, and these guys have tried it.
So it's One Blade?
It's really nice.
Very, very easy.
Hello, welcome. I'm Alex, and I am your Games Master for this afternoon.
Brilliant.
For those of you who don't know, what here is a tabletop role-playing game. It's very simple. The people sat around the table play characters, individual characters. I play everything else, the world and everything in it. They will tell me how they would like to interact with the world, and I will ask them to make dice rolls. The dice add a degree of randomness to what happens to see whether they succeed majestically or fail miserably. The story so far. Up to this point, the characters around the table are all members of a ship known as the Spirit of the Horizon. It has been teleported to a strange new world via a overpowered magical spell which they found whilst escaping a dangerous, angry elder god. They have arrived in this strange new world and had many adventures. They've been here now for about 2 weeks. During that time, they have fought many things and discovered many things about this new world. Most recently, they found themselves on a large island known as the Troquen Caldera, which contains 3 cities, each ruled by a powerful queen. They uncovered a plot to assassinate all of the queens, and they raced around the caldera, fighting off assassins and powerful members of the Barons of Port Trouble, which is part of the Troquen Caldera. They were successful in defeating the assassins, and they managed to save the lives of all 3 of the queens. The queen that they have spent the most time with, whose name is Abilzim, thanked them for their hard work and for all of the work that they have done in order to save their lives. She has offered the commanders and the captains of the ship quarters within the palace and extended an invitation to all members of the ship to join them in her part of the city, which is known as Lunes. She has told the assembled people to come back to her in a few days once they have rested up and to speak with her and to learn more of them and for them to learn more of her and for things to progress. That will be where we will pick up the adventure. Prior to that, what I'd just like everyone to do is go around the table quickly, introduce themselves, introduce their character and their character's name, what their character does, and also something about their character that would make them stand out or make sure that everyone else on board this ship on which they live and sail would know them for who they are. I'm going to start to my left. Please.
Hello, I'm Paul Flannery. I can't see where the camera is. It's there. Hello. It's way over there. I am playing the amazing Dench, who is a bard, who is half orc, and I get half fork. Why not? The other half wasn't specified, so I'm going to have to make it up.
It's human normally.
Yeah, but that seems presumptuous. I'm going to go with half orc, half fork. Tuning fork, because I'm a bard. I can play music, and in the non-character bit of me, Paul runs a show at Edinburgh called the MMORPG Show. Is that about right?
That's cool.
Lovely.
I am Naomi. I'll be playing Brina Froddle. Brina is a gnome wizard, so she's pretty easy to teleport on the ship because she is tiny, but she's also quite
Oh.
The cans aren't on either. No.
halfling rogue, obviously tiny in posture, but brave at heart. And I could say he's maybe the one that was just found out on the ship. He might be a character that was hiding there. So in a way that maybe gives a hook to introduce my character for the game master.
Wonderful.
I think we need to talk to Captain Golden about security on the ship, because this is our third stowaway that we found.
Yeah. The entire base of the ship is filled with stowaway halfling rogues. It's wonderful. Someone really should go down there and check that out. Wonderful. We have a gap on the table right now, which will hopefully be replaced by Ed, who will be playing Gwendolyn Skull, who is the human fighter. He's also the master of the ship, which means that he is in charge of the non-military side of things, of discipline and the scientific side of it. The Spirit of the Horizon is a military science vessel, so it has a wide-ranging remit. Wonderful. So we pick back up a couple of days after we left our characters in the throne room of Queen Abilzim of the city of Lunes. She has asked for a small band of adventurers from the ship to come back to her and to talk about how the citizens of Lunes and the citizens of the Troquen Caldera can repay them and thank them for their work. And also, she suggests that she may have work that they may be able to undertake on her behalf. So what would be really nice is if everyone could explain to me why they volunteered to put themselves forward for this next section of the task, and what conversations they have had amongst themselves whilst they have been walking from their lodgings in the city to the palace to talk to the Queen.
I can start that off, absolutely. So I'm going to be quite quiet, just because last time I was out, I did hurl a ball of acid at the captain, and Laura asked me to come back, asked me to go on this, and I felt like I had to accept, because apparently he needs a few days of a bit of a rest with Chansey, so I feel like I owe him. So I don't like going off the ship, but I'm going to go off the ship to repay him.
Mr. Dench?
Not with money, flat out, just cash. Cold, hard currency. My costume as a bard, as you would probably guess, is mostly made up of belts. And I just need more. Can't get enough belts. They're everywhere. I've got 3 on one arm. It's, so yeah, I'm in it for the cash. But maybe, I'm not a bad person. I mean, I want to help people if I can, but as long as there's reward.
Wonderful. And Robo, what has drawn you out from your hiding place upon the ship in search of adventure?
I'd say it wasn't something that drawn me, but maybe more something that pushed me, because, as a former stowaway, I might have to make up some to be able to get back in the end.
You have been eating our food, so we could just leave you here.
All right.
Wonderful. So the 3 of you find yourselves in the Palace of the Moon Eye. It's made of crystalline white rock, and it glows. It's covered in symbology of the moon, crescent moons, full moons. And you've been in town long enough now to know that the queen who runs it, Abilzim, is basically like a high cleric, a high priestess of the goddess of the moon, whose name is Zimian. And so all around you see iconography of her worship and the belief in her. Abilzim herself is an Arabi, which is a species which is unique to this world that you are on. None of you will have encountered an Arabi prior to your adventures on Havma, although since arriving here, this is not the first one you've met. It may be the first time you personally have come face to face with one, but there have been battles, there have been moments where you have met with people from this race. Queen Abilzim herself is tall, maybe 6'8", going up for 7 foot, and the Arabi themselves are almost alabaster-skinned, but beneath the skin you see this sort of light coloration, almost like a mottled freckle of multiple different pastel colours. What particularly stands out about her and about all of her kind is that their eyes are almost entirely white or gold, which marks them out. She stands in front of you wearing long, trailing silks and wispy clothing, all in whites and silvers to echo the colours of the moon. And she stands in front of you now, and she says, "Thank you for joining me. And thank you once again for the work that you and the members of your crew have done to save me, my sister, and my cousin." Do any of you respond?
I sing a rendition of Blue Moon.
She looks across at you, and she's normally very stern and quite matriarchal, but a wry smile cracks across her lips, particularly because in the song, which she has never heard before, it pays such close attention to the worship and devotion of the goddess Simeon, whom she has a great love for. And she says, "What a beautiful song. Please, you must write it down. I would have all the bards of my town sing this song in the future."
That would be great, as I wrote it myself. I then write down the lyrics.
Roll a deception check.
Okay, sure. Using the 20.
Yeah.
20-sided dice, and add your deception modifier.
12. What's the deception modifier gone?
There's an alphabetical list.
It's in your skills, yeah.
Oh, there we
It's
go.
there.
That's 4, so 16.
She believes you. She
Why
thinks that you definitely wrote that song, and she's actually quite impressed with your prowess as a songwriter. She then turns and looks across the party, and she says, "I have called a group to me. As I have already said, I must thank you much for the work that you have done. And I have seen how strong you are, and I have seen how much strength and power you can wield as a group. We have a small issue, and we would love to gain some insight and perhaps bring an end to this issue, if you would be willing to undertake this task."
Absolutely. What is the task?
The Arabi and the people of Lunes are mostly interested in trade and in agriculture. It is very important to us that our community and our city continues to grow. We recently came into trade with a small peninsula, a large island, maybe 2 or 3 days' sail from where we currently stand. There is ample grazing and ample opportunity for agriculture and much lumber. We would be most interested in growing our relations with the people who inhabit this island.
Yeah, but what does it pay? I mean, it's all good, but
I would be willing to extend a greater level of security and thanks, not only to you personally, but to all members of your crew. At present, you have my blessing and my best wishes. The people of Lunes will do everything within their power to make sure that you are provided for and entertained whilst you are here. If our gratitude and hospitality is not enough, well, depending on your success in the mission, I may be able to arrange a small payment of gold or silver or whatever it is that you find most amenable to your purse.
I just wanna, as an aside, like, do you remember she's already given us 5,000 gold?
I wasn't part of that.
It's a whole ship gold. Do you eat the food on the ship? Do you drink the wine on the
Don't
ship?
talk about the food and wine. I mean, we have to go through that bill that you put up.
It's true.
Because I'm not exactly sure if I had everything that you maybe thought I had.
She hears your conversation and she's not perturbed by it. She knows that as a trader themselves, as traders within the city, she understands that things have a price, and that people also have a price. And so she says to you, I do not believe we have met. What is your name, friend?
I step forward a small step and I say, my name's Robbo Barnes, and I'm, well, I wasn't actually planning on going here, but I'm from a distant land, and if there's anything to gain, I'm more than willing to help you out with your politics, whatever side.
She says, you are small for a man,
Hey,
but I see you wear great clothing. I find your cloak of great interest. Would you be of interest? Here in Lunes we have great seamstresses and tailors and merchants. If you were interested, I would be willing to take that cloak and give it a little Lunes flourish. Perhaps a shiny silver lining to hide behind.
that doesn't sound too bad.
If you are interested in my in the proposal I put to you, and you return successfully, consider it yours.
Oh, that is nice. Can I actually sort of talk about the design a little, if that's...
My tailors, and under my orders, would do it to whatever degree you see fit.
That sounds fancy, actually. Count me in.
She looks across to her now favourite bard and says, and you?
Well, it would be gibbous of me to refuse.
Very well. I shall explain a little more. The island is known as Rawstool. As I said, it is 2 to 3 days' sail from here. 2 warring species fight over control of it. We have only come to deal with them in the last few years, and so it is hard to know exactly what has caused this conflagration between the 2 sides. But it seems an ancient grudge stands between the 2. On one side, the clever and intelligent Komodo. Everyone roll me a history check, please.
So I'm just checking if I got advantage.
Paul?
I got a 15.
15?
12.
History. It's a 4.
Robo, this name means nothing to you, unfortunately. The name Komodo hasn't made its way down below the decks into the base where you've been hiding. Both Brina and the Amazing Dench, you have heard this name before. In fact, you have briefly come across members of this species. The Komodo are a small race of lizard-like people. They stand quite short, maybe 5 foot tall, and they are covered in thick, scaly skin. They walk bipedally, they walk on 2 legs, and they tend to have quite large mouths with spindly, lizard-like teeth. Mostly they are of a kind of sandy or dusky complexion. They're not the traditional green lizards that we think of when we think of lizards. They are more yellows and oranges and all of that kind of spectrum. Jumping back in.
Oh, they brew the wine that the captain brought back onto the ship.
I believe so.
That I believe Anderson favours, which is why I'm bringing it up.
Ah, yes, indeed. My favourite wine. Perhaps we can secure a small stash of it.
I might have had some of that. Is that a really good wine?
Yes.
On the other side of the conflict stand the Katafu. These beings are more difficult to treat with. The Katafu are large and strong and stubborn. Those of you in the party may have met a Katafu, possibly, or at least heard one of the members of the crew, perhaps the ambassador to Havmar, a large birdman by the name of Plumage, who loves to tell stories about his homeworld. He may well have mentioned the Katafu in the past. They stand sort of about 7 foot tall. They're not particularly attractive. They like to think they are, but they kind of look more like trolls that you would have seen in your home world. Nevertheless, they are intelligent, socialized, and a strong presence within the world. Elowen says, "It's very important to me that this land be brought back to some form of truce. I would like to see an end to this violence between the 2 sides. If you can arrange this without conflict, I would be most pleased." And she looks across to see whether you agree.
Sure.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Can we kill them both?
She looks at you, and the wry smile that she had given to the amazing Dench turns somewhat sour.
I was
And
just kidding, come on.
she she looks at you in a kind of slightly patronizing way and says, "I do not doubt that you have the ability, but it would not be of interest to me to see them removed. We are not a conquering race. We are a race of traders. We do not wish to run this land. We wish to gain from it." And with your quest in hand, you can now leave and head back to the ship. On board the ship, the captain, a man by the name of Golan Height, has locked himself into his cabin. He was there as part of the raiding party that saved everyone from the assassins, and he has asked and said to Relora, who is now the commander of the ship, that he mustn't be disturbed for at least the next 5 hours, and he has gone to spend time with his new pet, which he recently gained, a small griffin, which he is trying to train. So the captain is locked up, and but Relora is stood on deck in his place, and she is eagerly awaiting your information as to what happens next.
Cool. All right, I relay everything we've learned back to her, and say so. She wants peace between these 2 races with as little violence as possible. So hopefully we can be good peacekeepers and try and bring the conflict to an end, so they can open up trade routes again.
Right. Yes. This sounds like a mission that we should definitely take. Maybe, do you have the coordinates of the island?
Yes.
2 days sail away?
3 days.
3 days?
Yeah, 3 days sail away to Rostal, yes.
Cool.
And if we need need them, I can message the queen and get them.
You can assume that on your way out of the
Yeah, we
palace,
got them from there.
one of her various servants, lackeys, or people would have given you a piece of paper which explains exactly where you were going and how to get there. Wonderful. The ship weighs anchor and unfurls the sails and sets off in the direction of the coordinates of the island. It's a couple of days' sail away, so there is time on board for you as a group to talk to each other about potential strategies, or to have any conversations that you might wish to have about yourselves. It might be a wonderful opportunity for our newly discovered rogue to tell the party more about himself and explain how he may be of use to them.
So we're going on this peacekeeping mission. Have you done any of this sort of thing before? Any of you?
Peacekeeping? Who wants peacekeeping?
Well, the queen who just sent us on this mission.
I haven't been.
There's more money in war, to be fair, but, you know, whatever the job is.
There's a lot of money in agriculture and trade.
Cool.
There could be some goods in it for the ship. That would be really helpful in terms of keeping us supplied.
Don't look at me. I mean,
You're part of the team. You're part of the crew now.
all right.
So the lizards have wine. We should find out what the Katafu have as well. And we should find out, obviously, why they have a war.
Yeah.
Solve it with wine?
I don't know how well that works for Captain Golan, so I'm not 100% sure it'll work here, but we can try. I'm open to any suggestion. I just research magic, so.
Well, the captain's not here, so I mean, we were charged. We were given the mission, so maybe we should be the ones to decide what's best.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think? You seemed really good at that song you sang was great for the queen. Do you think maybe something like that would help here?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think I can dig something out. What, for right now?
Not right now, but
for
if
when-
you,
yeah,
if
when
you
we-
want to have a thought about something that might help us.
Yeah, I mean, I could help with diplomacy. I've got good songs and word-making abilities.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So impressed.
Well, I brought some of my local pipeweed we might share with their leaders, and we might resolve it in that way.
Oh, you should
Song,
meet
a little
Brother
laughter.
Jurgen with your pipe. We just got a whole crate of it upstairs.
Oh, right. Oh, you got a crate? My pipeweed?
The ship
I thought you
is
didn't
quite
find it.
literally replete with weed,
Excellent.
with smoking tobacco and various kinds of herb.
I know, that's the reason I was on there in the first place. So.
I stuffed my entire loot with weed.
Well, at
So
least
you're
we
not
have something
bringing-
in common.
You're
right?
not bringing your instrument.
Brother,
I have several.
Brother Jurgen refers to it as Lyra leaf,
Lyra leaf.
in honor of his goddess Lyra, the goddess of joy.
Literally.
Cool.
If you check, you still have everything. Might be some gun of that stash.
Yeah.
So as the days pass and you watch various tiny islands and small mountainous peaks go past the sides of the ship, you eventually come upon this long, quite large island, larger than most of the ones that you've seen in previous. Off to the east, as you look at it, to your right-hand side of the ship, you see a small area of mountains, and they fall away, and then to the left-hand side of the ship, way to the west, is more of a sort of dense, forested region. The ship itself comes closer to the island, and from here you can see no clear landing area. There are no beaches, there are no port towns. Instead, the island starts to split, and a wide estuary or delta, a large, thick, lazy river, starts to wind its way off from the coastline and up inland.
The river flows from the sea into the...
Yeah.
Presumably it's not big enough for the spirit to make its way down.
As far as where you're stood, the river flows that way.
Okay.
As far as the water is concerned, it flows from its source
Oh,
to
okay,
the
yeah,
sea.
That's more likely, isn't it?
Is this the point where we get the captain out of the cabin, just to make sure we don't somewhere?
We
crash
I can put a lock on the cabin
Oh, you
and
did?
a magic lock, and only I can dispel it. And I was specifically instructed not to. I'm not even allowed to message him. So I think we need to leave the captain alone. We can talk to Relora, absolutely, and she's great.
All
so
right.
we can talk to her, but we can't disturb the captain.
Excellent.
The ship, and it's being navigated by its normal navigator, a surly half-orc who's captain of the Marines by the name of Josin. He's stood next to the ship's doctor and cleric, another surly man with a northern accent by the name of Ulmorn, who you know from being on board the ship has a tendency to go on and on and on about the light.
And I know about being on missions with him.
So they bring the ship to a place just within the bay of the delta. It reaches a point where this large boat cannot go any further up. The river itself is quite silty, quite thick, and so it weighs anchor. And you hear Relora come to the small party and say, "Well, this ship can travel no further from here. I suggest you take one of the small boats. The jolly boat is in good condition. Perhaps you should take it up the river and see whether you can find any place to land. There's nothing along these coastlines here. It's important that we get into the center. When you get there, make sure you pay attention to what's going on. We've had a lot of fighting recently. I think it's important that we start to make friends."
Friends?
I agree. Lovely. Come on, Laura. I'm going to start making my way to the ship. Who's strong?
He is?
Are you strong?
I am, but I'm also lazy.
If you'd like to get this done quicker, I'm not very strong at all. I'm a gnome, so it might be good if you rowed the boat.
Yes.
We're both very short. I'm even shorter than him.
Okay. We get into the boat. I take off my shirt and use warding wind as a makeshift sail, and use warding wind to blow us up our path.
What does warding wind do?
I'm assuming wind.
I'm assuming wind, but what kind of wind? Let's hope it's
Warding.
not.
Let's hope it's not violent wind.
Well, I'll just go quicker.
Warding wind.
Because it might blow us out of the boat.
You did leave your pants on, right? For the
Yeah.
for the warding wind.
He didn't just take it. He took his shirt off for a reason. He didn't just randomly take his shirt off.
It's a strong wind that blows you, it's 20 miles per hour and it remains centered on you.
Sweet.
The boat.
Pretty good.
The boat that you were.
Deafen you and other creatures in the area.
Oh,
Quite loud.
Well, I have blindness and deafness, so surely I can undo that then. Or
that-
make us more blind and deaf.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was going to say, blindness deafness is definitely the opposite of curing that.
Extra blind.
The main issue you will have is that the boat that you are getting into does not have a sail. It's a
Hence
small.
the shirt.
Okay.
I mean, we can row. That'd be fun as well. But
I'll allow it. I'll allow you to cast a spell and use your shirt. It will be quite difficult to steer. It will be much easier to steer with the oars.
Who's got a rudder? Oh, we've got an oar.
I can probably hold an oar at the back and try and steer it.
we'll hold it together.
Yeah, we'll hold it together. Let's do that. That's a really good
See
idea.
how far-
Teamwork.
If we can
Cool.
work together.
Yeah, that's a
So
good idea.
you cast a spell, which costs you some spell points, and 3 points from your thing, and you hold your shirt above your head. Interesting question. Underneath the shirt, how does the amazing Dench look? I mean, we mostly see him covered in his instruments, and
Belts.
presumably
Many
and his
belts.
belt and
All
his
belts.
shirt. Underneath the shirt, he's...
So in my mind, like the two limbs are forks, and the rest is sort of like a sort of quite a slight orc, not hugely muscly, but not like tiny, like bigger than a goblin.
Still an orc.
Still an orc, like a big man.
He lifts.
Yeah.
He does a little bit of lifting,
It's
but...
only on one side.
It's like utility muscles, not presentation muscles.
Yeah,
you actually use your muscles.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a bad sight. It's just, a reason I ask is...
There's a difference.
Brina has a tendency, when confronted with things that she doesn't like, to vomit a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So
She's never done that for nudity, so...
I just wanted to double check that it wasn't like some...
Don't get me wrong, she's uncomfortable and she's not going to look at him, but this is not a vomit time. You'll know when it's a vomit time.
So suddenly there is a sound of a strong wind, and you're controlling it quite well. It's a wide area, and you're not using it specifically to hurt or harm anyone around you. So I'm going to negate the fact that it's supposed to deafen you. And the wind catches in the sail of your shirt, held above your head, and it starts to buffet along in the direction of this wide delta inlet.
And then can we take an oar together and try and steer it so we don't like crash into a bank or anything?
You can indeed. I would like the amazing Dench to roll me a strength athletics check, and between the two of you, I'd like you to decide who is going to take the most of the rudder. And then I'd like you both to roll me a...
Let's both
Wait till the check. Wait till we hear the check and then we'll decide. That's not metagaming.
A acrobatics with advantage.
Oh, you need to do that.
I'll
yes.
do that. You just provide the extra strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be a 6 plus a 10.
You can roll it again.
16, so roll again and then we're going to take the high number.
And so
Lovely.
13 and a 10.
So it's a 23.
23.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah?
It's gone well. It's 15. I've got strength 10. Athletics plus 1.
16.
16.
Wonderful. The ship bucks a little bit as the wind catches into the shirt held above his head, and you hold the oar at the back steady, driving the ship forward as it coasts. It's moving quickly and bouncing across the sort of low, undulating flow of the river as it comes towards you. You continue in this manner for a few minutes, and you watch as the river lazily starts to turn. Again, at this point, you still don't see anywhere on either side of the banks to land. But you can see that the river is starting to narrow a little, as if you are heading towards getting closer to where it ends. I would like you both to roll that one more time.
13.
Oh, yeah.
29.
13. The shirt in your hand, you almost lose a little bit of it, but you catch onto it, keeping it strong, and steady as a rock.
Excellent.
Just like shoots like an arrow through. The boat bounces along, and now it's noticeable that the banks on the sides have really started to come in towards you. Everyone roll me a perception check, please. So same thing, and then add your perception modifier.
That's 16 for me.
So I'm
6.
getting times.
14.
Is that including?
14.
Oh, 6. 16.
14. Wonderful. Robo, you're so focused on making sure that the rudder is in exactly the right alignment that you're not really looking around you. Amazing Dench and Brina, you're looking out over the sides, and you can see that it's sort of very silty and muddy. If you tried to make landfall on this part of the river, you would really struggle to land, and you'd probably find yourself shoulder deep. Well, certainly the Amazing Dench would find himself shoulder deep in mud and silt. Brina would
I'd drown.
yeah, would really be struggling. However, the river narrows until it is almost possibly only 20, 30 feet wide. Long, flat mud banks to either side. And now you're winding through almost like a streamlet. You can't travel quite as fast, and you're having to make constant turns and twists. But you do so with ease now. You've really got the hang of this movement. How long does your wind spell last?
Lasts for an hour.
Perfect. More than enough time. Eventually, as you're coasting round one of these corners, you start to see more water in front of you. And you come out into a small lake. The water is still and calm. Roll me perception checks, please.
13. Oh, that's better.
18. Let's just run down there.
18?
Yes. 15.
15. Wonderful. You're much closer now to the mountains that you saw off to the east and the forest that you saw off to the west. And you're almost on top of them. The mountains themselves are high, treacherous, tiny bits of snow-capped peaks. But much closer to you, you see a low, undulating set of hills. And on top of one of those hills, you see a settlement. Mostly small, low-level buildings. The odd watchtower made from wood, constructed, juts out above it. Off to the west, the forest is lush, green, so green. That all the lands you have been to have been verdant and green and overgrowing with all kinds of plant life. This one is no exception. And in fact, this is probably the largest woodland that you have seen so far in your travels. You do, however, notice who you rolled.
I rolled an 18.
You rolled an 18. You do also see above the treetops what looks like the tops of more towers, watchtowers, again constructed from woodland. You can't see anyone who stood on them at this point, but yeah, you're aware of them. In front of you, directly in the middle, between the woodland and the hills, is this vast plain. It's grey and yellow. And as you come closer towards it, you see in front of you what looks like a beachland almost. An area certainly where you would be able to bring the ship to rest. As you do so, a few hundred feet ahead of you, there are two small groups, small bands of people. Roll me perception checks one more time.
Critical fail.
14.
Brina, as the ship's coming in to start to land, you're very aware of having seen all of this mud and silt and sticky stuff.
Don't want to touch it.
You don't. Not only do you not want to touch it, you definitely don't want to try and step on it.
Yep.
So you're focused purely on getting your footing as you get out of the ship.
Yep.
The amazing Dench, you look in front of you and you see these two small bands of people, and they are in the beginning of a huge fight between the two sides. To your right-hand side, you see a band of maybe 5 or 6 of the tall, long hair, dark hair, tied behind them in almost a ponytail. They're carrying martial weapons, and they are engaged in a melee fight with a band of a similar size of the shorter, more scaly Komodo. As you arrive onto the shoreline, it just looks like a fracas, a melee. You can't really see what side is winning or who is in charge, but suddenly the battle parts for a moment, and in the center you see one of these large katafu, dressed in his most splendid regalia, carrying this long sword, and he is locked in mortal combat with this shorter lizard folk. He's on his own, and as you can see right now, he is about to lose. The lizard man has him down on one knee and is about to leap forward in a way to deliver a finishing blow. At that exact moment, just as the lizard man leaps forward, one of the larger man's brethren appears, cresting over an unknown rise in the battlefield in front of you, leading another small band. They are now outnumbering the lizard folk. He arrives in the scene and interposes himself between his friend and his antagonist and takes a mortal blow. With these reinforcements on the way, the battle explodes into renewed vigor and sense. What would you like to do?
You guys see that? You guys see that? These morons fighting. How about we wait here a little and there's less people that we have to unite?
Or we could help them.
Oh, come on.
Not help them fight.
Not help them fight.
Right,
Help them stop
yeah,
fighting.
sure.
So you're just stepping in the middle and saying, guys, just shake hands. What's that?
All right,
You got a spell for this, surely?
No. You don't know, Brina, so it's okay that you would assume that, but no. Right, I would... Right, so they've just killed the one we initially saw, right? They've
So
killed
the
him.
They killed his friend.
The first guy you saw looked like he was about to die, but at the last moment, one of his brethren stepped in and parried the killing blow away. In the same time, took the hit, took the wound, and he is now on the floor, bleeding out, looking very, very unhappy.
We're assuming they're friends.
They are.
They're on the same side.
Yeah, giving it a self.
Right, I am literally just going to shout, wait, stop!
Roll a performance check.
Absolutely. Ooh, uncharacteristically good. Performance is 18.
A few of the fighters, certainly the ones closest to you, they clock you, and they're suddenly, before they weren't aware the party was there at all. They were too busy and engaged in fighting amongst themselves. And sounds of battle are heavy, and there's a lot of scuffling and the sound of metal on metal as swords and shields hit each other. There is also the sound of the occasional fizz of an arcane blast as various members of the parties sort of set off minor magical attacks. A couple of them have noticed you, but the main antagonists in the fight are focused solely on their duel at this point in time. It was a very hard
I'd
DC.
say the moment that she bursts into that exclamation, I want to hide myself before I get noticed.
What would you like to hide behind?
Well, maybe the boat that we're still quite close to, or in the boat.
You could hide in the boat, but you would then be quite a long way away from where everything is happening.
Are there trees?
Right by the shoreline, no, there aren't. The shoreline itself it's sort of right on the edge of this flat plain land.
Well, I guess I'd just make myself as least visible in the plains.
You can.
So Robo is hiding. Brina is attempting to sort of wade forwards, again uncharacteristically, and shouting at them to stop their fighting. What's the amazing Dench doing?
I think the Amazing Ninja is going to sing a rendition of War. Huh, what is it good for? In an attempt to sort of back up the stop and wait. So see if we can get through to the musing song. I'm really good at songs.
You're a bard.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Roll a performance check for me.
4 but plus 9, so it's 13.
13.
Not my best one, but
The same ones that were distracted by Brina turn to face you, and the fight between those ones closest to you sort of starts to stop as this new strange group takes their attention. The fight is not finishing, but it is starting to die down a little as both sides turn and are now somewhat confused by these strange interlopers of a species, of a variety of species that they have never seen before, who are starting to wade and walk towards them up onto the plain. What would you like to do?
I'm going to ask them in character. I'm going to ask them. We don't want any trouble. We just want to know where your leaders are.
Roll me a persuasion.
Yeah. Oh, that's not as good. I think that's a flat 11, but let me just double check. Yeah, 11.
The Komodo closest to you cocks his head, confused in hearing a language he somewhat recognizes, and turns to talk to the others around him. He doesn't necessarily respond to your question, but it's clear that he heard your statement. As you look in front of you, the two main antagonists in the fight are still battling. The man who was almost killed and the lizard man who killed his friend. He is not hearing a word of anything. He is not aware of anything to do with you. At that moment in time, against all the odds, he lands a killing blow, catching the lizard man in his side, who drops to the floor, dead. The other lizard people around him see that their friend and commander has fallen. They drop their swords, and they start to run away off towards the forests to the west. The larger Katafu stand their ground, cheering, grasping their fellow who has laid the killing blow. And at that point, I'm going to bring this out to an end.
You can't say that I'm coming. I'm like clambering over. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for those of you watching on the live stream, high live stream. We're doing this from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Every day at the Fringe. You are more than welcome to come back later and see where the adventure goes. You can also buy yourself a player ticket and get involved yourselves. I'm going to very quickly throw to at least one person on the table so that you can do a slightly longer plug for what you're, the other things you're doing up at the Fringe.
hello.
Cool.
So I do 2 shows. I've got a solo show called the MMORPG show. It's very much like a short version of this, where we play D&D for an hour. Except, we abandoned most of the rules because it's hard to do in an hour. Mostly we end up going over a bridge or through a door. But in a fun way. In a fun way, it is fun. That's at the Counting House Ballroom at 9:15 every night, and that is free. I'm also doing 3 dates of Nightmare Live, which is the old kids' TV show from the 80s and 90s. That'll be on at the Underbelly, the big cow in George Square. The next one's on at the 13th and the 21st.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We've got to get on to our next hour. So thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye, stream.
Bye.
Thank you so much.